the ability to use air tools here is a must, in my opinion. If not, you have to buy some really high dollar brackets that go into these holes that retain the pulley while you do it by hand and stuff. It's just probably not worth it. I know any of you guys who've looked at the manual on removing this driven pulley have seen, you know, that they have this specialty tool, blah, blah, blah. Watch this right here. Okay. Utilizing my incredible strength and just holding the pulley by hand. Bingo. There are two washers. You have to note that they have a little bit of curvature to them, so it's very important to put them back on in the same way they were taken off. I'm going to put them in the back to make it easy to do. Okay, then check it out. Bingo. And again, with incredible strength. Okay, now as we take this out, we're going to get all the washers with it as well and leave them on the bolt. First thing I'm going to do is put a little tri-flow on this. And I'm going to put it in by hand and start threading it in by hand first. Basically as far as I can. Okay, now it's starting to get in there. There it is. Clutch is removed with a little. Okay, I'm going to hand take my puller out because there's no tension on it anymore. Alright, then I'm going to remove the drive and driven pulley together. There we go. Once you have the spring compressed, you need some C-clip or E-clip pliers to get this locking C-clip off and be able to take the spring loose. I have a little Craftsman set that works pretty well. Okay, we got the C-clip off. So now we want to decompress our spring. I'll try to turn it to where you guys can see it. And I'll show with the spring decompressed, we just take the puller back apart. Take the top cap off that has our E-clip, our C-clip I mean, that we took off. And we remove the factory spring. If we were going to adjust belt tension, we'd take apart this pulley system here. The shims are in between the two of them. Okay, now I'm looking at my sheaves for any damage. There's not, they're smooth. And now we're going to put the Dalton spring on. Not much dust in my CVT at all. Okay, now then we put the C-clip on it, and then we recompress the spring and put the C-clip back on. Then we're done with the driven pulley for this. Once we get the spring compressed all the way, or far past where the C-clip goes on, we reinstall it. There we go. Make sure it's seated all around. It is nicely. And we decompress, and we have installed the new Dalton Silver secondary spring in our driven or secondary clutch, or secondary pulley. Check it out. Pretty easy, huh? What I'm doing now is I'm just by hand turning a few of the bolts. I have 4 bolts still in around the clutch cap to just kind of decompress the spring slowly. See how this gap is spreading? I can tell there's not a whole lot of tension on it. In fact, I think I got it to the point where there's none. So what I'm doing is just kind of using multiple bolts to spread the load evenly and make sure no single point gets stressed too much. I think I may be to where we're done. Still a tiny bit of spring to go. Pretty easy so far, guys, huh? We're about to get the clutch cap off and replace the primary spring. put our overdrive clutch cap on, put it all back together. I've probably got 2 hours actual work time here, not counting what it, the lighting, moving the camera, all that stuff. But we're just working this clutch cap off a little bit at a time until we finally reach nirvana. There we go. The cap is freed. Alright, we can pull our primary spring out. We're going to be putting the amber spring back in, but let's go ahead and see if we can get to our fly weights. I've already pressed in the rivets on for the range control end of these fly bar weights. So now I'm going to install my grub screws in the threaded passage. And I am using Dalton's specified for 26-inch tires. I'm running High Lifter MSTs. They're a little bigger than 26. Stock engine, aftermarket CDI pipes, light airbox mod, and proper jetting. And what they call for is 3 of these grub screws installed in the channel. And I'm just screwing them in here. And what the directions call for is to screw one in till it stops, screw the next one in till it stops, screw the third in until it stops, without over tightening any of them. As I finish installing and tightening the third grub screw in each of these new Dalton flyweights, I'm going to use my Sharpie again to just make the ends of this insert black, so I know for sure I've got the 3 grub screws installed in each one. Now that I have all my new Dalton flyweights all configured, it's time to take out the factory flyweights and put in the Dalton flyweights. What you're going to need is a 10mm wrench and socket and ratchet, or any other combination of 10mm if you want to use. I'm only taking my bolt out far enough to get a flyweight out. Then I'm going to put a Dalton flyweight in. Pretty tough, huh? Whoops, you caught me. I'm actually working on a yummy lunch my wife made right now. We now have all of our Dalton flyweights installed. There's this one. We're going to install our amber spring and our Dalton overdrive clutch cover, and it's really easy to figure out which way the clutch cover goes on. See this arrow right here? See the arrow right there? We line up the 2 arrows and we're good to go. With our new spring installed, we hand start our bolts. What I'm doing now is just getting all of them in by hand as far as they'll go, and then we start using the socket and ratchet on it. We want to tighten these all a little bit at a time to pull this clutch cover down against the clutch body, I guess you'd call it. Very not tight at all. And I'm going to be tightening them in a crisscross pattern. We're done installing new components. All we got to do is put it back together. Now that we have all our clutch components installed in the primary and secondary, or the drive and the driven pulleys, it's time to put everything back together. And you just want to put the belt across both. I'm using a genuine Kawasaki brand belt. Okay, I've slid the driven and the drive pulleys back on. They're proper shafts. Got my Kawasaki belt in. Remember, I left the washers on the bolts. Remember, this one's reversed. I'm going to hand thread it in. Okay, the rear driven pulley bolt and washers I left together as well to make it easy for myself. And again, I'm going to thread it on by hand. Both of these get torqued to 69 foot-pounds. We have now reinstalled the driven and drive pulleys, torqued to 69 pounds. We're now ready to put the CVT cover back on.